Hola, mujeres! Welcome to our first YouTube episode. So, today, John and I were recently talking about, have you ever stopped to reflect on what we think is a failure? And I say, en comillas, failure, because it's actually a learning experience. When we're going through that hard time in our lives, we see it as a failure. We don't see a way out. We focus on the fear. We focus on the worst thing that can happen. And we just feel like at the bottom of the sea. Like we think we're never going to get out of this. Our personal brand is messed up. We're not going to be the woman that we aspire to be, the wife, the mom, in general. But I want to let you know that if you are going through something hard, or if you have gone through something hard, so please stop and reflect on what did you learn? How did that make you stronger? How did that even help you identify who you are? Because when you're going through those hard times, and let me remind you, God never gives you more than what you can handle. So whenever you feel like you can't take it anymore, yes, you can. We've been there, we've done that. And that's the beauty of going through hard things is that once you reflect, is that you will always find out what did that do to you to become a better person in your life, to be able to touch someone else's life. And when I say touch someone else's life, is that you are being an example for them, you're being an inspiration for them, because you've already been there, done that. And that's the beauty behind of, oh, I failed, oh my gosh, no, I'm never going to be able to do this, or I'm never going to be able to do that. I can't believe I've been through this. Why is this happening to me? And everything has a reason behind it. At the moment, it's very hard to see it and to believe it. But once you start talking things through, like Jana and I have been able to do just a couple minutes ago, we see that and we feel that. And once we start talking about it, which is something that we love about this podcast, is that this is a platform that we are able to share that with you all. So I'm going to do a plug in. If you ever want to share a story, come to us.
Yes.
So with that, Jana, let me, because I could keep going.
Yeah.
Ustedes me conocen.
No, but I'm to your point, Rosie,
Yes.
though. When we and this is a perfect uh episode for us to like introduce our YouTube channel, just because that's what we do here, right? Like we share our own experiences. So
Mhm.
like Rosie and I, my experience and things that we have gone through as women, as Latinas, as moms, as leaders, as like all the hats that we wear that you could think of as women. And we bring in other women to the podcast to share that with you guys. And so that it's relatable experiences that you can kind of see where what happened on our end or to someone else, so that hopefully you don't have to go through that, or if you are going through that situation or whatever that may be, you feel like there's someone else that has gone through that and you have the tools to be able to get through that. And that's what we aspire to provide to you,
to be relatable to you.
exactly. So to your point, Rosie, though, before, um, so Rosie and I were talking earlier about how I've gone through, like, you guys already know, like I've shared this through like other episodes, and so like my pregnancy loss, where you're going through that. That's just like an example, because we know that like we all go through a lot of things, and there's just more than just that, right? That I've gone through, but like just to preface it, like just use it as an example. Now it's one of those things that when you're going through a really tough situation. So for that, my experience with my pregnancy loss, I never really thought about what the end result would be for that. Like when I was going through that, I never really wanted to think about like, oh, what am I learning from this journey right now? Because it was right.
What are you learning? Number one.
Because it was really tough, and at that moment you're really like your feelings and your it's cloudy, like you're really not thinking about in the future, like what am I going to do with this information? Am I going to teach someone? Am I going to share with someone? At that moment, all you want is for it to just be done, right? Like to get to that light,
that chapter.
Exactly.
And you're like, oh, what's the easy way out? So that was something else, Jana, is that we want to always take the easy way out. And guys, there's always a hard to everything. Like one example we were talking about, if we talk about marriage, we're like, why are divorce rates even up higher? Which there's nothing wrong with that. again, nothing wrong with that. But it's just like it's hard to be a single mom and it's hard to
A
be a
married
married
mom.
mom. So choose your hard. So evaluate that. It's always going to be hard. But sit down and think about and reflect what is the end result of that. And you have the power to create the end result of that. And it all comes to what are we putting in our minds? What are we feeding our minds with? And that's why when we talk about self-care and self-love is, hey, we need to nurture ourselves to be able to say, who do I want to be? So John, another thing is we were talking about is what do you do when you're in that moment? Like what is that breakthrough to get out of that cloudy mindset? Like what have you done in the past to be able to just have that breakthrough?
I think it depends on the situation, because if your end goal is something that you really really want, and yeah, it didn't work the first time around, so like in that journey where I had my pregnancy loss, my end result or what I wanted in the end was a baby, right?
Mm-hmm.
Didn't happen that first time, had the loss, and obviously like it was grieving. It was like, is this gonna happen again? Like, I'm really not looking into what I'm gonna teach other people, what I'm learning from this. It's like thinking about like the end, like where will I have another child type of thing, right? So like if that's my end goal, how do I get myself out of like my pity party, how people say it, right? Like how do I
Yeah.
get myself through the journey, even though it's really hard, and get myself ready for what's to come, right? Like or find solutions, right? Because I'm not saying that, the end goal for me, it happened that I ended up having another child, right? Like, thank God. But it could have been that I wasn't going to have another child, because I also have to, be realistic. And sometimes like we don't really get what we want, but
Mm-hmm.
you should still try. And that's what I wanted for myself. And so the moment I realized that that was my end goal, I needed to get myself out of that journey, move on, kind of like grieve it, find a way to just like look at the light at the end of the tunnel, and then just start, fresh, and just kind of like move on again. Like, not that I've forgotten that that's
Mm-hmm.
happened, because clearly like I've shared it with you guys, and I'm sharing it again as a kind of like as a journey that I've gone through, and how that process at the end of the day kind of helped me understand like how I would use that information or that experience to share with you guys and educate you on those things that happen. So it's just thinking about like, what do you want? Like, what do you want to accomplish at the end of the day? Like, where is that going to get you, and what you're looking for? And then finding ways to get you to that point. And so for me was making sure that like, okay, I've done what I've needed to do through this journey. It was difficult, but then now like, what's the next step? Like, where am I going to be next? And so depending on what you're going through, you got to think about what your end result or like your end goal will be, so that you can get yourself, it's faster, as fast as you can, I guess, and easier to get you out of that situation, or out of the journey, or the struggle that you're going through, because it's not easy, but you got to do that for
Mm-hmm.
yourself, because no one else is going to do it.
And something just listening to that comes to mind is how do we handle when people want to come to us and tell us what to do, their point of view, or remind you what you did wrong or what you did right or what you didn't. Like, take that out. Like, just follow your gut, follow your heart, because you're the only one that's going through that. And yes, you listen to people that have gone through that, but when you feel that, you feel it in your heart, you're like, yeah, that's great advice, but that's not really resonating with me. So Jana, what about for you? Um, when you have had hardships, like how have you been able to zone out all the extra noise that's in your surroundings?
It's I'm not gonna lie, it's difficult. It's really difficult to do so, but I think that thinking through what through your journey, thinking through what is it that you want to do afterwards, right? Like, how do you
Hmm.
want to use that struggle to your advantage, like for yourself, and what that's teaching you, and how you're going to teach other people. So it's just thinking about finding a way. So going back to, we always try to go back to like a lot of the things that we talk about in our episodes, which is about like, right, self-care. So like within that journey that you're going through struggles, like you still have to think about
Yourself.
yourself.
Make
And
yourself a priority, which is super hard.
exactly. And on top of that, it's like getting the resources you need, right? So therapy, right? Like we had a couple of women coming to our episodes, our podcast to talk about therapy and how useful that is and how important it is, especially for Latina women or just
Mhm.
like the Latino community overall. So thinking about those resources and taking advantage of those to get you through that and kind of like you said, like black out the noise and just taking advantage of those things so you can get yourself through that struggle. And then the experience, right? Like what did that teach you, even though like you're not really thinking about it at the moment, but like, let's say 6 months from the time that you went through the struggle, like then you can reflect on that
Mhm.
and think about, okay, that was hard. Oh my gosh, I went through that. I did that. So what am I going to do with that now?
And that is having me think about, we're like, well, how do you feel when you finally like, I'm a badass. I did that. I conquered that. I just lived it and I claim it. And I'm not afraid to say that I went through that. Even though at that moment I was embarrassed, I thought that I was not being the person that I wanted to be. I was overthinking what people were going to think about me, say about me. And now we're able to say, I'm a badass. Like,
Yeah.
a mí no me importa lo que digan because I am able to be stronger. I know that I was able to learn a lesson. So, how does it feel, Jana, when you're like, I'm a badass? Like, I went through that. Like, I want people to hear that. Yes, that it's possible to feel like a
It is,
badass.
it is. It's definitely a great feeling afterwards, right? Like once you've gone through it and you know that like, woof, that was hard, but then you know what? I did that. And then now you can think through how did that experience help you and molded you, right? Like we
Hmm.
talked about earlier,
Yes.
molded you into who you are today or who you want to be or who you don't want to be,
Yes, we were
essentially.
talking about that too.
Right? So, because you learn things from
Hmm.
those struggles and those experiences, right? And that could be something as much as like, I don't want to be, whether or not like you're a leader or a mom, right? Like, I don't want to be that mom, right? Like I
Right.
want to be this kind of mom moving
Hmm.
forward because I learned from this struggle. So to me, it's like, what are you, again, really difficult, but it's like afterwards, like think about who you really want to be after that and how
Yes.
you want to show up for like as your future self. And so for everyone that is around you and how do you share that information and like those tips and educate other people about the struggles and the process that you went through? So I think it's important to
Yes.
just determine like
You
how that's
adjust. You adjust and you just be like, okay, this is part of my journey and this is how I'm going to keep moving forward. Because yes, you're going to have those days that you're just going to be crying. You're going to feel like shit. But then you're going to have those days where you're like, I'm a badass. And oh my gosh, you're like, I really been through this. Like, let me pat myself on the back. So with that, I just like John, another thing that we also touched on is how do we make sure that we are sharing our knowledge and our experiences with others? Like, how can we be intentional now from our learnings? Because one of the things is that we forget to be intentional, and like sometimes even if we're a mom with our kids, if I sometimes I say I don't want to be like my mom on this XYZ, but one thing is saying it that you don't want to be that person or don't want to have that personality trait or characteristics, but how are we being intentional to not be that way? So what I've been having to do is actually writing it down, saying it out loud. It's like when we do our affirmations and having that mindset, replaying that, or even
or
thinking,
or or catching yourself, right? Like,
yes,
oh, I am acting like
yes.
my mom right now. Right? Like if
Yes,
that was the example, like
right.
I don't want to be that person, so
Yeah.
let me go back and like readjust, right?
Yes,
So
we're throwing out different examples out there because I know Jana started out with that one with the miscarriage, and it's we wanted to touch on that one because it's something that you could
yeah,
relate to because you've heard a couple episodes from her, from Katie. But like we said, this could be in any hardship in your life. Like it could be from small to big, because we honestly have felt it from small to big. Just being a sister, just being a daughter, just being an employee, just being a leader, being a wife, just being a woman in general. Because I always say, why does it have to be so hard to be a woman? But
Mm-hmm.
uh, so just to close this out, Johnny, you got anything else to add before I go
No,
into my to do homework?
I just wanted to say that be intentional though about, like, sometimes you don't want to, I know it's really difficult and you don't want
Hmm.
to share that experience because it might be like PTSD, right? Like
Right.
that's a
It's
thing.
triggering. Sometimes you get
It
triggered, and you're like,
exactly, it is triggering, and I get it, right? It's really difficult, but I think that at the end of the day, like, your experience, you may think that it's not important, but your experience will, and educating other people will help other people understand what you went through and what they it would help them understand how they themselves, if they go through that situation or they're currently going through that situation, how they can get themselves out of it or through it,
mhm.
essentially, knowing that they have other people that they can relate to. So,
Yes, the best one is to know that you know someone that you can relate to. That doesn't mean you're gonna follow all of their advice,
hmm
follow
hmm
everything, because again, like I said earlier, everyone's different. It may not everything may resonate. You always gotta follow your heart, your gut. And overall, like I'm here sitting up, seeing a sign that I know that Jana did when she was going through a very hard time, and it says pray, wait, and trust. And we have said it before. We are both believers of our Almighty God. So you guys will be hearing us saying this here and there, because that is what our foundation of what we believe. So for our homework, I want you to, number one, think about what is something that you're going through that's hard right now, or that you have gone through already, that you just feel that you're at the celebratory moments, that you're like, I'm a badass. Like I've been through that. And we mentioned it. We've talked to entrepreneurs before. Sometimes they will be like, I don't even know how I've done this, but I've done it. And I'm here sharing my story. So number one, reflect on what has been that hardship that you have been through. Number two, how have you been able to surpass that, to know that, hey, I'm a badass. Number three is think about how you, like, what have you learned from it, what you don't want to do that you did in that situation, and what you do want to keep on doing that you have learned from that situation. And I feel like I'm missing the fourth
I
one.
would say share with other people,
Yes.
educate other people, because, like I said, your experience is important. You may think it's
Yep.
not, but other people would really appreciate to know that someone else, that they can relate to someone else that's going through the same thing they're going through.
Yes. So intentionality. So hopefully you guys can really just take out your phone on your notes or a notepad, wherever you want to write it or talk it through. Also want to say that we're open to talk on our DMs on Instagram,
hmm
because I know that we may seem very introverted, but we really are really here to listen to you. And if anyone knows us personally, we are open hearted, vulnerable, and not scared to talk about things that we have been through. So hopefully this is the beginning also of this, of us having our podcast on this YouTube channel community, to actually build more community and have us come together. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, like our video, share it. We would love to see your support. Already feeling super grateful if you're watching this. So that's already a win for us. So thank you so much, chicas.
Hasta
Les
la próxima.
queremos. I want to say in some episodes, I'm just here thinking like I can say besos and you guys can see it. So gracias. Y hasta la próxima. Ciao.
Bye.